ASD, autistic spectrum disorders. The best way to think of it is as a continuum. It's a wide range. It's lifelong and it's a neurodevelopmental disability. It's not something a child is going to grow out of. Children who have ASD grow into teenagers who have ASD, grow into adults who have ASD. What we can do is teach coping strategies and teach students how to manage it. Autism was first described by Leo Kanner in 1943. Individuals can be anywhere on the IQ scale. ASD will also often have some language delay as well. The latest research is suggesting there's a genetic basis. This is a huge area of research and debate still. It's best to think of ASD as a triad of impairments, 3 areas of impairment: social interaction, verbal and non-verbal communication, and an impairment of flexible thinking and social imagination. If we look at social relationships and understanding, students with ASD may find it hard to get on with other people. They can lack a theory of mind. An ASD student that I worked with put this in a perfect way when he said, everyone else seems to be able to read minds. I don't get it. How can they know what I'm thinking? Behaviour problems that we can see will often come from a lack of understanding. Chantel was 16. She was desperate to be part of a peer group. She had ASD and she had fairly delayed language. She wanted to be part of a group of girls. She would watch how the girls interacted. She'd see them talk, she'd see their faces make these funny shapes, she'd see the corners of their mouth lift up, she'd see noises come out. She wanted to try and have that same interaction. So what did Chantel do? She ran up to them, she punched one very hard in the face, and then she watched. She was so pleased. This wonderful water came out of the eyes. This howling noise came out of her mouth, and Chantel ran round the playground shouting and smiling and whooping with joy. She'd done it. An onlooker in this situation would say that Chantel was violent, that she clearly enjoyed hurting someone else because she smiled, but we've got to look a bit deeper. Chantel didn't understand the link between facial expressions and emotions. She didn't know what that meant. All she knew was that she wanted to interact, she wanted to have an effect, and this was the best way to do it. We had to teach Chantel other ways of interacting. Communication. Students with ASD may develop speech later than other children, or indeed they may never develop it. And even if they do develop that speech, their language and choice of words may be wrong or inappropriate for this situation. They'll often have a literal understanding. Picture a lesson on first aid. The teacher stands at the front, asks the class, what should you do if you cut yourself? The student with ASD, really pleased they know the answer, responds straight away, bleed! Pause. The teacher stares at the student, working out, are you being cheeky? Are you being rude? They're being neither. It was a literal response to a literal question. Rigidity of thinking and imagination. Students with ASD may get upset if their daily routines are interrupted in any way. In fact, scrap that. We all get upset if our daily routines are interrupted. We like predictability. We feel safe in that. For students with ASD, that's tenfold. It's exacerbated. They may repeat actions such as rocking back and forth, develop obsessions with specific objects, routines, timetables. It will be for safety. It's to make themselves feel safe. The world can be a confusing place. Often, students with ASD will have sensory difficulties. Andrew was a 12-year-old student with ASD that I worked with, and central heating fans for him were painful. They would bring him to tears. The pain of that noise was intense. Now, here, when we talk about ASD, we need to suspend our thoughts about normality. Forget what we think. It's easy for me to look at Andrew and say, well, that's ridiculous. That's silly. It's a fan. It's a fan. It doesn't matter. It's not painful. My understanding of reality, my understanding of normality is irrelevant when it comes to students with ASD. They will perceive and see the world in a different way. The best way that we can help students with ASD is to take the time to think how the world appears from their point of view. That's when we can make the changes to the environment that are necessary for the student to not only manage, but to be successful. And students with ASD have the right to do that just as any other student does.